Why do people fight less and less for the things that they have, or for the things that they own and, well, they imagine they own more or less? See, the first and most important thing to understand is people probably never will understand that there is nothing that one can truly own in this universe. Well, let's call it in this life. One can only own their own karma because that is the only thing that one will take with them, well, beyond the physical body that they will sooner or later shed. When it comes to experiencing life, well, each and every one of us will make use of different resources, whether in brute form or whether processed into something more suitable, something that will make your life much easier, because that is technically the purpose of resources. Once you can make use of those, you will make different tools to simply adjust your life or make your life much easier to go through, to experience. Now, when we look back in the times, people have been living with the bare minimum for thousands upon thousands of years. We may even say tens of thousands of years, probably even more. We never know how much our race has been existing for, and well, science is beating the bush here and there. History is telling you that we've been living for around 163,000 years. Other scientific pieces of proof want you to know that our race is probably even 1 million years old. But, well, you know how things are and how science is. The problem of science is not itself, it is the people and the quality of the people that represent it, and not only that, but also those who finance it, because some people probably don't want to know things beyond the old patterns, right? Just like back in the times when people thought that the whole world was flat and everything was spinning around because of the nature of our visual apparatus, which gives you the impression, well, that if you look at the sky, everything kind of seems to be spinning around. And since you're on a big planet, you can't easily realize that the planet is actually moving and not everything is moving around it. But for a while, or a very long while maybe, I don't know how long, but for that long, that theory has been going on. And anyone who thought otherwise than that obviously was called a heretic, or someone who would disagree with the narrative. A sick society will always have its own sets of narratives because, in the end, a sick society is represented by deviants, people who have forgotten about nature, who gave up on nature, and they simply live in their delirium worlds where they are no longer bound to the so called laws of nature. See, many people may not agree with the such. Some would be foolish enough to even ask, where are those because they are not written? See, a lot of simple minded people, they can't comprehend or they don't want to comprehend something that they cannot see, they cannot touch, they cannot hear. But when it comes to your behavior as a compulsive behavior or an unconsciously living being, your behavior is already written in stone. In the karma of your ancestors that you have taken, in the karma of your parents that will have a greater impact on you as well, in the karma that you have accumulated in your life as well. Maybe you don't believe in karma, but it will be influencing you your each and every one of your seconds of life. Obviously, it is hard for people to want to comprehend things beyond the senses, the five senses, because, well, in the end, karma has its own way of influencing you. See, for the longest time, people have been illiterate. People have been believing in only one thing, their faith, and, well, they only had a few tools, their little turf that they had, their house, their garden, and maybe their crops, for the longest of times. And those were very few. Yes? When you don't have too much, obviously you will fight for that because ultimately you cannot exist with that. So that is why people would fight for their faith, whatever that was, and obviously for the little patch of land that they had. This is why people will always fight for territory. This is why conquest will always exist. Because deep down inside, there is this idea of territory, lands, mass, whatever you want to call it, having resources. And everyone needs resources, yes? If you don't have the resources, your future people, your children, Every other generation that comes after you will not have the necessary resources to survive. That is why wars have always been going on. Every empire wanted to ensure its survival. Obviously, an empire would do good things or some good things for itself, but at the detriment of the others, right? Because the winner is the one who deals the rules, yes? When you look into nature, see, I've always told people if you don't know how you should function as a society or what is the nature of your being, just stop being stupid and ignorant and just look at nature. It just puts everything at your disposal. You can't want the fact that, or you can't accept the fact that everything is brutal in nature and you want the so called peace in here. There is not ever going to be any peace in here because we are animals just like those that live in the wilderness. It's just that we prefer giving ourselves titles and hiding behind concrete jungles, but at the same time, we still live by the reptilian brain, that of survival. Because anywhere you will go, anywhere you will hide in this universe, you can go to a different galaxy, you will still have your karmic structure, which includes, obviously, your reptilian brain, your impulses, and as such. You will become less compulsive when your stomach, for example, is not empty, when you're hungry, when you're thirsty and you don't have the resources. Obviously, you'll be thinking on how to procure those. And when things become dire, well, killing, I assure you, is never going to be far away from your mind as a possibility, right? I'm not condoning that. But look at how things go into the world as well. People who don't have resources, they will snatch them. People who feel they have too much power, they will still go after that. Because once you have that much karmic structure, that much energy or information, whatever you want to call it, gathered under that, let's say, thought that you need resources because you're poor, well, that becomes a problem because future generations might end up being affected by such things and such impulses of the previous generations. Because some generations definitely lived in very horrible ways, and those misaccomplishments, those tears of sorrow, those pitiful moments that they felt, and whatever other such dense emotions will be carried on to their newer generations. And since everything in a way is interconnected, the point is, it doesn't matter. The whole world can be happy and joyful. One single part of the world will not be, everyone will still be affected. If the joyfulness and the such will be distracting enough, you will probably not realize that you are affected by other people's misfortunes. It is no it is by no means curious nowadays how everyone is feeling depression. Everyone is feeling depression not because their life sucks, because they're not doing anything to make that their lives better. It is mostly because the whole world is also suffering. You need 52 billion animals to be killed so that you can have some piece of meat on your plate. Estimates say, not I'm not sure exactly, but estimates say you need around that many animals slaughtered so that you have some piece of meat on your plate. And you also need, you know, all sorts of other resources from Mother Nature in order to exist. And there are wars, famine, and people deliberately kept in famine and poverty so that other governments can rule over them and impose their own old ways of existing of the world. And all of these impose a lot of suffering into the people. You are connected with each and every one human on this being. You are connected also with the animals and the such. That is why you can actually feel empathy towards other animals, towards your race as well. But throughout the thousands of years, the thousands of generations that have gone before, each and everyone has been programmed more or less that there is something bad about you, that you must live in shame and guilt. When you combine these three elements, you will create a huge hatred towards your own kind. And this is what has been going on. Nowadays, there is a great curation of this, but in order for it to be cured, everyone will have to experience it. Hence, why you have all these bozo woke fuckers who simply don't do anything. They just go out together and they are just, you know, nose stuck into their phone. They're thinking that they're socializing, but they are simply living in the same survival mechanisms. Create a wall around you and simply, separate yourself from the world. When people are miserable, what do? They hide behind walls. And then what is the problem? They feel alone. And then when they feel alone, they feel hurt. And they think in their delirium that their being hurt is because of the other people around. Because someone happens to say something that they interpret as bad. All these misinterpretations have been going on around for thousands of generations as well. So obviously they will have a huge impact on you, whether you accept it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you know of it or not. It doesn't matter. Nature, physics, and the such, they will do their own thing, even without you knowing. The sun will not dim its light because you don't know of its existence. The sun will not shine brighter because a blind person cannot see it. Yes? Things will go on in nature regardless of how your senses function, and especially regardless of what you may think. Nowadays, the problem is comfort has simply dulled people down. Because back in the times, people would fight for the little bit that they had because they couldn't afford losing anything. Nowadays, people feel that they can't afford losing anything either. But in the end, there's so many things that people nowadays have that our previous generations could never ever think of. When you think about that, still there is a huge problem in the middle. Because for thousands upon thousands of generations, people have considered themselves worthless and not worthy of having anything or owning everything. And in time, even religions were and other beliefs happened to end up being pulled into this direction and propagate this as well, right? You see it in many parts of the world that some people make use of religion to make you think that you are evil, right? That the only purpose of the one and only so-called God is to make sure that you are born evil and you will be judged irrespective of situations. Yes, it's like these religions are becoming less and less relevant in the world because people are sick of this whole concept that you're evil by design, so you'll be, punished brutally by the so-called one and only God. So that is why a lot of people say, well, if I'm gonna be brutally punished and judged, I'm already judged by all sorts of fuckers around the world, starting with my family probably and the others. So why not simply, waste my life in all the possible sins anyways, right? The sick society is anyways promoting sin in all possible ways, right? If you think you're living a religious life or in somewhat of a religious country, don't forget you're drinking energizers called hell. You're doing witchcraft without you even knowing when you're cursing. And also don't forget you're playing games where demons and vampires are overpowered as fuck, usually. It is a sick society that promotes everything which is non-religious more or less, whether it wants or not. But a sick society can't care about your beliefs. A sick society only cares about you being used as a battery until you perish, and then it simply won't care about you anymore. So when we look at things, people have been believing for thousands of generations that they're not worthy of certain things. This has been carrying on, and it is there within you. It is inactive, yes, but it exists within you. It is a way of thinking, and it is going to get activated by people telling you this, that you're not worthy, or people punishing you or treating you badly when they shouldn't have. And these things will become, these thoughts of your ancestors will become triggered and will become active. And you will empower them more and more. The more adults will tell you those things and remind you of those things. Because in the end, we live in a miserable world where people are miserable. So what will they do? They will impose their misery upon others, right? So when we look at this, well, keep not believing in karma and the such. It's gonna affect you regardless of whether you believe in it or not. But the question is, are you ready to simply embrace life the way it is? Because nowadays people have so many freaking things. When sick societies impose even more restrictions on your rights, on your freedoms, and impose more things on or limits on how much you can have, there can be a possibility that even if we live in this world with all the resources that we have, Well, there are plans in Europe that, everything will be rationalized. You will see. Because there are forces in the world that want you to live poor. There are forces in the world that want you to live ignorant. So that, well, sooner or later you're going to be exterminated through hunger. Rationalization was declared in France, for example. They have such plans. There was not necessarily started, but there are such plans, and well, the whole European Union is said to go on, well, to undergo such aspects. So the more things people have, the more they can afford to lose because of their stupid comfort zone. And once they realize they can no longer lose more things, it's already gonna be too late. Because once society has taken a few things from you, you have allowed it, so therefore it will keep going on. Never allow sickness to ripen, because once it does, it's gonna be hard to simply weed it off. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You're appreciated, take care, enjoy life, and this being said, John Board signing out.